hitting a perfect stride, a sharp ache flares along your shin bone. It worsens with every step until you're forced to stop and grab your leg. You likely follow the standard prescription. You take a few weeks off, ice the leg to numb inflammation, and aggressively stretch your calves. But 2 weeks later, you lace up your shoes and head back out. By mile 2 of that very first run, the exact same dull, aching pain returns right where it left off. This cycle repeats because most treatments target the temporary symptoms of the injury, while leaving the root cause untouched. While resting resets the inflammation clock, it does nothing to fix the underlying mechanical failure that triggered the pain in the first place. Finding a permanent fix requires analyzing the lower leg as an architectural weight-bearing structure. This structure is governed by a simple mathematical concept. On one side, you have tissue load, the physical force generated by every running stride. On the other, you have tissue capacity, the limit of what your bones and tendons can absorb. Shin splints happen when the load violently outweighs the capacity. This structural breakdown is known as Medial Tibial Stress Syndrome, or MTSS. MTSS is a condition involving exercise-induced pain and inflammation along the inner edge of the shin bone. Specifically, it affects the tibial periosteum, which is the thin, highly sensitive layer of connective tissue covering the bone's outer surface. With every stride, your lower leg muscles tug at this sensitive layer. When the load is too high, that constant mechanical tension causes the periosteum to inflame and pull away from the bone. If left unchecked, this unrepaired microdamage operates on a continuum. The inflammation eventually spreads, pushing the injury toward a full-blown tibial stress fracture. We can evaluate the traditional advice of resting and stretching by looking at how they impact this engineering equation. Clinical evidence shows that stretching is a remarkably weak and ineffective tool for treating MTSS. Aggressively stretching the calves applies an upward mechanical pulling force directly onto a periosteum that is already damaged. You are applying more tension to the exact tissue that is struggling to stay attached to the bone. Resting also fails the equation. Taking time off drops the daily tissue load to 0, which allows the immediate inflammation to die down and the pain to fade. However, dropping the load does nothing to raise the tissue's fundamental structural capacity. The pillar remains weak. The moment you return to your old running habits, the load spikes, the capacity is instantly breached, and the periosteum becomes inflamed all over again. Breaking this loop requires a 2-step strategy. Manage the load today while raising your structural capacity for tomorrow. First, we must identify the force multipliers that drive the load too high. These usually involve training errors, like sudden spikes in weekly mileage or running on hard concrete surfaces. Biomechanical flaws also play a role. Conditions like flat feet often lead to over-pronation, where the foot rolls excessively inward during a stride. Over-pronation is a movement that bypasses your foot's natural shock absorption, sending impact waves directly into the tibia. To fix training errors, utilize the 10% rule. By never increasing your weekly mileage by more than 10%, you ensure your training volume doesn't overwhelm your body's ability to repair itself. For the hardware fix, upgrade to properly supportive footwear. Using arch-supporting orthotics can help absorb the impact that your shin bone is currently taking. Modifying your training and your gear acts as a temporary protective shield, lowering the load just enough for the bone to heal. The final, permanent step is to increase the leg's structural capacity. Since stretching provides no protection, you must focus on strengthening. The muscles in your kinetic chain, the calves, the hips, and the core, are designed to function as the body's natural shock absorbers. When you build strength in these areas, the muscles take the brunt of the impact, safely dissipating force before it reaches the bone. Shin splints represent a structural limit that demands a structural solution. Recovery depends on fixing your mechanics, respecting your training limits, and building a stronger machine.